Among the many forces that shape our lives, emotions stand out both for their incredible ability to influence our well-being and for the mysterious ways in which they do so. When we are overtaken by intense emotion, we lose the ability to discern between the rational and the irrational, good and evil, and in extreme cases, between reality and illusion. Emotions can drive us to do things we never imagined ourselves capable of, some for good, but many, undoubtedly, for harm. Of all emotions, anger stands out as one of the most powerful and certainly the most destructive. Fury, resentment, chronic hostility, and hatred are all forms of anger that, if allowed to accumulate, can lead to personal suffering, immense harm to our loved ones, and ultimately, even large-scale tragedies. In the 20th century, millions of lives were lost due to political movements fueled by collective resentment, a clear reminder of the dangers of ignoring our own anger. However, not every expression of anger is destructive or pathological. Sometimes it arises as a legitimate response to suffering or injustice. Aristotle once said, "Those who do not get angry at what they should be angry about are considered fools." In certain situations, anger provides us with the energy necessary to act, fight for our goals, and face constructive challenges. It signals that something within us desires to live and assert itself, whereas its antithesis, apathy, indicates that we are being overcome by a will to give up, to fade away. The challenge we all face is how to harness the constructive side of anger while avoiding its destructive tendencies. The goal of this video is to explore how to do just that. To begin, we must understand the link between powerlessness and anger. In truth, no social emotion is more common than the feeling of personal powerlessness, the sensation of being trapped, persecuted, cornered. While Lord Acton famously stated that absolute power corrupts absolutely, the opposite is also true. Absolute powerlessness corrupts absolutely. When life feels devoid of meaning, when apathy chains us to jobs that merely pay the bills but leave our souls empty, when we are crushed by the overwhelming power of states and corporations, or when we drown in a sea of others with whom we cannot connect or make an impact, powerlessness comes first, followed by anger, and ultimately by fury. Our particular problem in this moment of history is the widespread loss of a sense of individual significance, a loss felt as powerlessness. Many people believe they should not or even cannot have power, that even their own self-assertion is denied to them, that they have nothing to affirm, and thus no choice but violent outbursts. Beyond social forces, life itself and the existential burdens we carry can awaken in us this feeling of powerlessness that breeds anger. From birth, we are thrown into a reality that can be hostile, frustrating, and indifferent to our desires. This powerlessness in the face of a cold world is further intensified by the certainty that no matter how much we try to deny it, our primal desire to continue existing is doomed to failure. Death awaits us all. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Though anger is sometimes a natural and even healthy response to powerlessness, most of us are conditioned to repress it. We create elaborate social rituals to maintain an altruistic image behind which we hide our anger and resentment. In doing so, we become psychologically unstable, fragile, and prone to psychosomatic disorders, or sudden outbursts of fury that seem to arise from the unconscious without reason. Given our vulnerability to powerlessness and anger, it is essential to find constructive ways to deal with this emotion. For this, we can turn to the concept of the daemon. Daemon is an ancient Greek term originally used to describe a power that came from outside, something like a spirit or intermediary between gods and humans. Rollo May redefined this concept in modern psychological terms, describing it as any natural function that has the power to dominate an entire person. Sex, love, anger, hatred, and the desire for power are all examples of daimonic passions, powerful instinctive drives that act immorally, seeking their own fulfillment. For this reason, they can both inspire and destroy us. While the benefits of daimonic passions like sex and love are widely acknowledged, our culture tends to ignore the constructive side of anger. Society demands that we repress most of our anger, and in doing so, we suppress a large portion of our creativity. The need to be creative is not limited to artists or specific personality types. Rather, it manifests in all of us whenever internal or external conflicts or chaos arise in our lives. The presence of conflict and chaos signals the need for some kind of transformation, whether in our worldview, our character, or our environment. When we choose creativity over passivity and powerlessness in the face of chaos, we respond proactively, transforming our minds or reshaping some aspect of the external world. In doing so, we find meaning in chaos, face challenges, and ultimately transcend disorder. The creative process is a process of change, of development, of evolution in the organization of subjective life. Given the role of creativity in transforming chaos and conflict into order and meaning, and powerlessness into power, the lack of sufficient creative expression in our lives becomes one of the primary causes of many personal struggles. However, as Pablo Picasso pointed out, every act of creation is first an act of destruction. Whether we are forging a stronger state of mind or something of great significance in the external world, we must first let go of what is old and obsolete to make room for the new. You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame. How could you become new if you have not first become ashes? Friedrich Nietzsche, thus spoke Zarathustra. This is why, in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, William Blake presents Satan as a symbol of creativity, activity, and energy, striving for freedom. As a daimonic passion of destruction, anger is often necessary for any form of lasting and meaningful creation. To create, to update the possibilities of oneself, always involves both destructive and constructive aspects. It always requires breaking free from old patterns within ourselves and progressively abandoning what was internalized in childhood to create new and original ways of living. Every creative experience carries the potential for aggression or negation, whether directed at those around us or at the entrenched patterns within ourselves. Recognizing anger as a natural response to powerlessness and understanding the dangers of repressing it is essential. By accepting this emotion, we can prevent it from wreaking unconscious havoc on our lives and the world around us. When we become aware of anger and embrace its existence, we can use it to energize ourselves, fuel our creativity, achieve ambitious goals, and transform into more assertive and decisive individuals. On the other hand, if we continue following the cultural conditioning that leads us to ignore or suppress anger, it may shift from a daimonic passion to a demonic force with potentially devastating consequences. To learn to live creatively with the daemon or to be violently consumed by it, This will be the decision that determines our fate. May we choose wisely. Ultimately, anger is not an enemy to be eliminated, but a force to be understood and channeled. Its energy can destroy or create, corrupt or transform. It is up to each of us to decide whether we will allow it to consume us in blind rage or whether we will turn it into fuel for a fuller and more meaningful existence. By learning to recognize anger as an expression of our struggle for meaning and personal power, we can avoid letting it become destructive and instead use it to forge paths of authenticity, purpose, and growth. For only one who faces their own shadows can, in the end, illuminate their own path.